It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. This is segment B block, we call it. And we start this at about 7:20 in the morning. And the date today is Friday. I was going to say Thursday. Almost came off on my tongue there. Friday, January 17th, 2025. John, are you there?
I am.
Okay, you disappeared during the break there. You cut out for a minute, but you're back in good shape then, right?
I've been talking to you the whole time.
Okay, I couldn't hear anything. Okay. I get off the air yesterday, and I get some work done, and it's time for me to go my way of going to my neighborhood Schnucks to get my donut fix, okay? And don't make fun of me, John, but it's the one thing I enjoy, where I go to Schnucks and I get a donut, and I get a can of soda, and that's my breakfast, so to speak, okay? I'm driving to the Schnucks yesterday, and I'm going to make a left turn into the Schnucks, and this is a 4-lane road with a center turn lane, a suicide lane, whatever you want to call it. I'm the third car in the center U-turn lane trying to make a left turn. I don't know exactly what happened, but car A going eastbound, I was going westbound, smashes into another car, which hits the car, 2 cars in front of me, and then hits the car in front of me. And that car, there was so much force, almost smashed into my car. Once again, I'm trying to make a left turn, and literally a shower of body parts, not of people, but of car body parts, plastic, pieces of stuff raining down on top of my car. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, WWJD. You know what WWJD stands for?
Yeah, it stands for don't call 911, just drive on, Brad. What would John do?
What would John do?
And that means just be on your way. The other people's accident is not your trouble. Now, I know that you don't value your time as much as I do, and you'd like to sit there and kibitz with them about the P-51 Mustang, teach them all kinds of things, but I would just move into a traffic lane and be on my way.
John, there were people injured, and the fire department, I believe, finally had to come and pry one of the people out of the car. So once again, WWJD, what would you do again, John?
I would be on my way. Did those people lose their hands in the accident, Brad?
You saying so they couldn't use their phone? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they weren't able to. They probably got in the accident in the first place because they were texting while driving. I don't know what kind of a savage does that. But secondly, yeah, I would imagine, Brad, the way you described it, there were several people involved, and that at least one of them has a cellular communication device, if not a device that's connected to their automotive insurance company. But yeah, we could sit around and kibitz about how the Lambert Airport landing pads were named. Did you know that they named the first one? I mean, most people think the first one's okay.
John,
I would just get in the traffic lane and be on my way.
Have you ever been in a really bad accident? I mean, I don't mean to be nosy, but have you ever been in a really bad accident?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. After it happened, did you have a very clear, was your mind?
I did, yeah.
Your mind was
I'm a
to the
grown
point.
Man, and I take responsibility for myself.
Yeah. Well, no, your mind was
anyway, Brad, so is that number one, or what are your other stories here?
Okay. Well, the point I'm trying to make was, guess who the first person who was to call 911? It was me, John.
It was. Now, Brad, let me ask you this serious question. Have you gotten a download link where you can get your certificate where somebody from the Highway Patrol pats you on the head and says, you're the first one to call?
Okay.
Here's a plastic helmet from the fire department that says, number 1 deputy.
Okay, John, but here's the interesting part of this. I mean, you may not find this interesting at all. Okay. I call and I get a recorded message. Hi. Thanks for calling 911. We're busy right now. This is exactly what they said, but we know you have an emergency. Please stay on the line. And hi, thanks for calling 911. We're busy right now. Please stay on the line. And I was on hold for 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So finally,
that's unacceptable, yeah.
I get a police dispatcher, and they transfer me to the fire department. And once again, the fire dispatcher, you talk about being thorough. She's asking me questions. can you tell if anybody's trapped? I said, it looks like all the airbags are deployed on the car closest to me. I can't see past that, blah, 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 blah. She says, and then she starts telling me, well, if you get out of your car and someone's in the car, do not move them out of the car. Do not.
And you're like, I know. I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to break their neck yanking them out of a car.
Right. Do not attempt to splint any of their limbs. That's what she said to me. I'm going like.
Well, now, how would you possibly do that? Do you have one of your sawzalls in the trunk?
Maybe she knew I just was at Home Depot and I had a couple of 2x4s in the back and I had my cutoff saw and I'm just gonna my miter saw gonna come. Oh, ma'am, let me split that arm for you. Okay, it gets better. Okay, about an hour later, I get a text message. And it's from the 911. They want me to rate they're wanting me to rate how my call was.
That's great.
Well, my call was handled. And it asked me 5 questions, and says, was the dispatcher, blah, 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 blah. And then, you yes, no, or, whatever the thing was. And then at the very end, it said, here's a block where you can send us, information. And then there was a phone number. And I dialed the phone number and I left a message and I go, you know what? What you need to do is you need to hire more 911 operators because I was on hold for probably close to 2 minutes, and once again, I've said this before, when seconds count, police and minutes away. So,
Yeah, it's quite a cliche. So, it's true too.
So this is the debate between. So once again, in your life, John, how many times have you dialed 911?
0.0.
Which blows me away. There's probably not a month that doesn't go by. Sometimes it'll happen a couple of times in a week. And John's making fun of the fact that was that last year when it was, or I think it was in the spring, there was a pretty bad accident on 364, and I called and got Highway Patrol, and I was the first person to call, and later the trooper called me back that day, was investigating the accident, when I actually saw it. I go, no, I just came up on it after it had happened, and John makes fun of me because of the fact that he thinks I'm going to get a certificate from Mayor Key, our Governor Kehoe, thanking me for supporting the local police and calling 911, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, Governor Kehoe is a real businessman who values his time, so he wouldn't waste his time with people that do that stuff. But probably the local fire department, Lieutenant John Shonda who gets on the air and tells you to not start a fire inside. Those are awesome tips. I love those. The guy that tells you to not, set an open flame indoors next to flammable material, he might give you a flimsy plastic hat and a deputy sticker, Brad.
Thanks for pissing off some of our clients, John.
Thank you. They don't listen to this show. This show is listened to by serious people. And besides, if he's in the Westplex, he can't hear our signal anyway.
Okay, whatever. Okay. Have you heard that Biden has shortened the sentences of 2,500 people? Get this guy out of office before he lets everybody out of every jail in the country. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I do know. Yeah. But you know what? He should do the Trump thing and give more pardons to rappers.
Well,
I haven't seen a lot of rappers get pardoned yet.
Kodak Black, remember Trump paroled
yes.
Kodak, and what did Kodak Black do? Exactly what Hunter Biden did. He lied on an application for a gun license or for a gun purchase, not a license, a purchase. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do you call this? You call it prop bets?
Yeah, there could be. I wonder if there's any prop bets on who's going to get the next pardon.
That's what I was going to say. Do you think?
I know who I think it's going to be, though.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I think it's going to be Fuji White.
Fuji White?
Yeah, he's the rival of Kodak Black. They had one of the most vicious beefs there's ever been. Brad.
I'm sorry, I missed that one. I didn't see that one coming at all. Fuji White.
Minolta Gray has kind of been in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Minolta Gray is definitely in the middle of Fuji White and Kodak Black.
Minolta never made film; they just did cameras. So you're a little bit bad on that one. So
thanks, Brad. I'll put that in the P-51 Mustang file.
How about the P-61 Black Widow? Have we ever talked about the P-61 Black Widow before?
No, but we should spend at least 17 minutes the rest of the week talking about it.
Okay. There was something that happened last weekend that I wanted to bring up, and I thought it was interesting. Let me see if I can find this. It was interesting story. Here it is. Here's the story. Okay, you're a sports guy, right?
I pay attention loosely, not as much as I used to, but I know a few names here and there.
Okay. Do you know? Are you into basketball, college basketball? Do you know who the Tennessee men's basketball coach is?
No, I don't know.
Rick Barnes, okay? And he's got a guy on his team. This happened last weekend. He's got a guy on his team. His name is Chaz Lanier. And Chaz Lanier is a big-time star on the Tennessee team and was highly recruited and is making quite a bit of money with NIL, okay? And you know why Rick Barnes got into the news? Why everybody's talking about this story, which is pretty interesting?
Oh, no. What happened?
Chaz Lanier was not essentially doing what he should be doing, and Rick thought he was just not doing much, just like sort of going through the motions and not really
Mailing it in, yeah.
Right, mailing it in. And they had a play especially designed for Chaz, and Chaz blew it and essentially didn't really care that he blew it. So the coach benched him, and he said, get out there. He says, I'm not playing you anymore until you do what you're paid to do. This was the quote that made the news. Okay.
Wow, it's true though, right?
Right. The interesting thing is that, and what's funny about this is there's pushback from both sides. Well, not necessarily pushback. The people who are saying, okay, this is what college sports have degenerated to. It's like the minor NFL or the minor NBA, but you know, it's interesting because I was reading something the other day that talked about that there are guys in college football who are making more money than some of the guys on the NFL teams who are on the minimum team contract. And I thought about that for a minute. I thought to myself, that's kind of spooky. You know what I mean? When you think that...
Well, sorry to interrupt, but I saw a headline today. I didn't click on it, but it was in the Kansas City Star. And like most papers, their website is mostly syndicated content that has nothing to do with their geography. And this was a story about a kid that I think was transferring from Texas. Anyway, and they did the math in the headline, and him transferring apparently meant an additional $8 million in NIL money. Like, can you imagine that, Brad?
Okay, here's the full quote. Here's the full quote from the coach. He says, I took him out of the first play of the second half because he didn't shoot the ball, he told CBS Sports. Quote, that play is designed for that shot. I told him, if you're not going to do what you're getting paid to do, then you're going to sit over here because he's getting paid to do that. That's the coach.
That's so funny.
And the coach got all sorts of pushback. You can't say that, you know, because it's sort of like wink, wink, nod, nod. Well, they're amateur athletes. No, they're not. They're, you know, and the crazy thing about it is the whole crazy thing with this thing, talking about loopholes, okay, they're getting money for name, image, and likeness. So there are people saying, he's not getting money to play basketball. He's getting money for his name, image, and likeness. He doesn't get a penny for performing on the court. John, your comment on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, but once again, it's this crazy weird thing, and it's gotten to the point where what was it, the bowl games or all these different bowl games where a bunch of the teams, the guys didn't show up to play because they'd already gotten they're transferring, they're in the transfer portal to another team or something like that.
Yes, and well, you see it all the time too. If a guy knows that he's going to go, if a guy knows that he's going pro, you know, he's not going to come back for another season. Why risk an injury?
Man, I don't know. I mean, you know, I understand. See, the interesting thing about this is I have friends of mine who played for big college teams, and they talked about the fact, yeah, they didn't really get paid, but they got all the spiffs and all the bennies that nobody else got. They got a special, you know, place to live. They got special food. They got special this. They got tutors. Remember that was that big controversy?
Especially tutors, yeah.
Well, remember that big controversy with Mizzou, what was it, like 5 or 10 years ago, when it turns out the tutors were actually doing the work and taking the test?
Yeah, that was the Kim English. That was during that whole era.
Right. And it wasn't and the tutors were doing more than tutoring. They were studenting, but, you know, sort of, you know, undercover, so to speak. John, Is there a solution? You're a smart guy. I mean, do you think is there a solution? I mean, this NIL thing just can't keep going the way it's going, can it?
Yes, it can. And the whole idea is, Brad, let's draw an analogy here. In terms of putting the toothpaste back into the tube, it would be like saying, we've thought about it. And here it's 2029 in the state of Missouri, and we've had sports betting for 4 years. And it looks like a bunch of men aged 18 to 30 are just complete derelicts and gambling their money away. And we're just going to ban sports betting. I think we're just going to get done with it and no more sports betting. Like, once people get acclimated or used to something, you're not going to take that quote unquote right away from them. So what we would do if we banned NIL or we said that college athletes couldn't get paid, then you would just have more 18-year-olds that were banking on that money and pushy sports dads who are banking on that money just go pro.
But the fallacy of the whole thing is they're not going to college to learn. Do you think these guys are actually in classes? If these guys are pulling down 7 figures with their NIL thing, do you think they're going classes and rubbing elbows with the guy who's working nights at Pizza Hut because of the fact that, he has to pay for his dorm room and pay for his tuition? Do you really think he's sitting in that classroom?
Yeah, probably not. But Brad, as we learned from people like Mayor Tashara Jones, you don't have to actually attend things. You can attend virtually too. I'm just trying to get your goat. No, I don't think so. I mean, other than for symbolism or showing up for tests. But you and I, Brad, aren't exactly waving the flag for young men going into college and being indoctrinated for 4 years either.
Well, but no, I will preface by saying what you just said, that I've said this before. I'm not a big fan of college anymore unless you're going to go into some type of a field where you need the degree. Obviously, if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer or
Sure.
certain kind of professions like CPAs or nurses, it's gotten to the point where I don't know if you can even get an RN anymore with a 2-year degree. I think you have to get a BSN now. I think most of the hospitals now will only hire if you have a BSN. Some of the people if you've been grandfathered in to the point back in the day you could get an RN with 2 years or stuff like that. But if you're going for black studies, our literature,
Gender studies, English.
our literature appreciation, our archaeology. There aren't too many jobs unless you're the guy in the movies who's going to go. He's going to teach a class, and the next day he's going to be in Arab in someplace in South America hunting for the skull and crossbones or whatever the weird thing. You know what I'm talking about? Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Right, because that was his deal. Where 1 minute he's teaching a class, and the next minute he's being shot at by Indians because he's trying to steal this or get whatever the deal was.
Whatever that jewel is. Brad, by the way, was this a paid sponsorship for the Broadcast Center?
The Broadcast Center's been long gone. Why do you say that?
Oh no, has it really? You're not telling me it went the same way as Stanford Brown.
John, let me tell you, one of the things I'm very proud of through my years of being in the radio business and owning my traffic network company and owning these radio stations, I can still count on both hands, and matter of fact, a couple of feet as well too, the number of people who came to me with absolutely positively no experience in broadcasting, who today, and I'm not saying because of me, but I gave them their first job and gave them some, instruction and education and a little bit of, mentorship, and they've made a nice living working in the broadcasting business. And some of them had college degrees, and some of them didn't. And there's a lot of jobs like that where you don't necessarily need a college degree. I mean, technically, do you need a college degree to be mayor of the city of St. Louis? You could be a high school dropout. If you could raise enough money, you could, any political office. There's no way that you, if you're a president, you don't have to have a degree in anything, right?
That you're exactly right. Yeah. And Brad, to your point, I don't think we talk about this enough, in that there are so many people in the St. Louis area in the radio ecosystem who you gave a shot to. And I thought of this the other day because we had friends, I see names occasionally of friends of yours and mine, like Justin Alferman and others, that you gave a shot to that people don't know as radio people, but you gave an early opportunity to folks like that, whether it's Sue's News when you're listening to Mark Reardon, or it's guys like Justin Alferman. It's all kinds of folks throughout this ecosystem you gave opportunities to, Brad.
Justin Alferman was a high school kid, and I did a talk show with him, just like you and I did a talk show. I did a talk show with him on my AM station at the time. It was KWMO. And Justin Alferman would come into work every day, and we would talk about his goals and things like that. He was a college kid. He was going to Borgia at the time. I mean, a high school kid. And he told me he wanted to be the next Sean Hannity. And I helped him get a job. And matter of fact, the running joke was I helped him get a job at the Zimmer operation in Columbia, Jefferson City. And at one point in time, he was producer for the afternoon talk show. I can't remember who was doing it at the time. And the funny story was Justin had a terrible problem with directions. And the one morning he was going down to interview for his job down at Zimmer in Columbia. And we called him on the air live to find out if he'd made it down for the interview yet. And he was lost, which was sort of funny. What exit do I get off on 63? You know, it's Justin Alferman. You know, but now, you know what, interesting thing was?
Let me guess. Remember, Brad, let me preempt you and tell you that a year ago, he was one of the first imaginary beefs that I went in with you, and I said, I'm sure this exists only in your head. And then Justin listened to our show and reached out and said, yeah, I love Brad. I don't know why he thinks that I'm mad at him. Brad's awesome.
Justin won't talk to me anymore.
Did I? So I did correctly preempt your ridiculous story. And yeah, so shout out to Justin, who's at SSM Healthcare now, Brad. He's the director of advocacy at SSM Healthcare.
He won't talk to me anymore, John. He won't speak.
I can repeat it over and over again, Brad. That beef never existed. And thanks to me, we have on air solved imaginary beefs with Bill Eigel, who you claimed didn't talk to you until we started our show together. Justin Alferman, who you claimed wouldn't talk to you until we started our show. And Mike Carter, who you claimed wouldn't talk to you until we started our show.
John, I happen to have a recording of a conversation I had with Justin. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. I looked at Justin. I saw him at a gas station. I said,
I want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along?
He said nothing, got in his car and drove off.
Well, it's hard to recognize that voice when it's not addled by PCP. But yes, Brad, it was an inspirational quote from you.
Okay, John, we have to take a break.